The Philippine Air Force has marked a significant milestone in its modernization program by securing an additional batch of AIM-9X Sidewinder air-to-air missiles from the United States. This acquisition is more than a simple procurement of weaponry. It is a calculated step toward enhancing the country's ability to protect its sovereign airspace in an increasingly contested regional environment. Integrated onto the FA-50PH light fighter jets, the AIM-9X will provide the Philippines with a credible short-range air combat capability aligned with modern allied air forces. The FA-50PH, manufactured by Korea Aerospace Industries in partnership with Lockheed Martin, has been the backbone of the Philippine Air Force's fighter fleet since 2015. Designed as a light combat aircraft with multi-role functions, it has performed maritime patrols, air policing, close air support, and limited strike missions. Yet, despite its adaptability, its air-to-air combat power has been constrained by reliance on older AIM-9L-I-1 Sidewinders. These legacy missiles, while reliable in their time, do not offer the seeker sensitivity, countermeasure resistance, or engagement envelope necessary to contend with modern aerial threats. The introduction of the AIM-9X Block II changes that equation entirely. The AIM-9X Sidewinder represents the latest evolution of a missile lineage that has dominated Western short-range aerial combat for over 6 decades. Equipped with an advanced imaging infrared seeker, the AIM-9X Block II can identify and track targets based on their heat signature with a degree of accuracy that renders traditional flares and other countermeasures far less effective. This is coupled with high off-bore sight capability, allowing pilots to lock onto a target far outside the direct line of the aircraft's nose, and a thrust vectoring control system that grants exceptional maneuverability in the close-range dogfight environment. Unlike earlier generations, the Block II variant also supports lock-on after-launch functionality and a two-way data link, enabling dynamic retargeting and improved situational awareness during combat. For the FA-50PH, a platform already capable of mounting a range of precision-guided munitions for ground attack, the addition of AIM-9X Block II missiles elevates its role in air defense. Previously, in an encounter with a capable 4th-generation fighter fielded by a regional power, the FA-50PH would have been at a disadvantage in missile reach, seeker sophistication, and resistance to electronic warfare. With the AIM-9X, it gains the ability to threaten enemy aircraft at ranges of up to 35 to 40 kilometers, depending on altitude and engagement conditions, while maintaining precision tracking even against agile and heavily maneuvering targets. The psychological and deterrent value of this capability is as important as the technical specifications. Potential adversaries will now need to account for the presence of a missile that can decisively win a short-range engagement. Strategically, the decision to purchase AIM-9X missiles reflects Manila's broader aim to integrate more closely with allied and partner air forces, particularly those of the United States, Australia, and Japan. The Sidewinder is a standard weapon in NATO and allied inventories, making logistics, interoperability, and joint training significantly more straightforward. This is not merely about having the hardware, but about being able to operate seamlessly in coalition air operations, whether during peacetime exercises or in crisis scenarios where collective action is required. The timing of the procurement also deserves attention. Regional security in the Indo-Pacific has entered a period of heightened tension, with the West Philippine Sea at the forefront of Manila's defense concerns. Incidents between Philippine patrol assets and Chinese Coast Guard or maritime militia vessels have become more frequent, and the potential for escalation, whether intentional or accidental, remains high. While the FA-50PH and AIM-9X combination is not a direct counter to naval harassment, It strengthens the broader deterrent posture of the armed forces of the Philippines. The capability to impose costs on hostile aircraft intruding into Philippine airspace complicates an adversary's operational calculus. It must be acknowledged, however, that this is only one step in a larger modernization journey. The FA-50PH remains a light fighter, limited in range, payload, and radar performance compared to high-end 4th-generation or 5th-generation aircraft. The AIM-9X, for all its capabilities, is a short-range missile. It does not provide the beyond visual range engagement capability of systems like the AIM-120 AMRAAM, which the Philippine Air Force is reportedly considering for future acquisition. In a high-intensity conflict, the current number of missiles ordered will likely be sufficient for training and a modest operational stockpile, but would be insufficient for sustained combat operations. Furthermore, the operational impact of this acquisition will depend heavily on how quickly PAF pilots can be trained to employ the AIM-9X to its full potential, particularly in exploiting its high off-bore sight and lock-on after-launch features. Looking forward, the AIM-9X purchase should be viewed as a foundational capability upgrade rather than a final destination. Manila has expressed interest in acquiring additional FA-50 variants with enhanced radar systems, possibly active electronically scanned array radars, that would complement the new missile's capabilities and pave the way for the integration of more advanced BVR weapons. Combined, these upgrades could transform the FA-50PH from a primarily training-oriented combat jet into a fully credible multi-role fighter for air policing, maritime security, and limited defensive operations. In the broader regional picture, the Philippines' decision is both pragmatic and symbolic. Pragmatic because the FA-50PH remains the most cost-effective fighter option within the nation's budget constraints, and the AIM-9X maximizes the combat value of the existing fleet without the multi-billion-dollar expense of acquiring heavier fighters like the F-16 or Rafale. Symbolic because it signals Manila's resolve to protect its airspace and its willingness to align more closely with US-led security frameworks in the Indo-Pacific. This is a message that will be heard, not only in Washington and Canberra, but also in Beijing, where military planners will be compelled to take note of incremental but significant capability gains by the Philippine Armed Forces. Ultimately, while the AIM-9X will not, by itself, tip the regional balance of air power, it enhances the credibility of the Philippine Air Force's deterrent posture and strengthens its ability to operate alongside key allies. In an era where air superiority is as much about perception as it is about raw numbers, the psychological deterrent value of equipping even a light fighter fleet with modern high-performance missiles should not be underestimated. For defense observers, the lesson here is clear. Modernization is not always about acquiring entirely new platforms. Sometimes, strategic impact can be achieved through targeted upgrades that transform the effectiveness of existing assets. For the Philippines, the AIM-9X Sidewinder acquisition is a textbook example of how to incrementally but meaningfully improve combat capability, in line with both strategic needs and budgetary realities. For viewers who seek timely, in-depth coverage of developments like this in Philippine military affairs, it is essential to stay informed as events unfold. I invite you to support our channel by following, subscribing, and activating the notification bell so you never miss the latest updates on the country's defense posture, procurement decisions, and strategic outlook. Your engagement helps us continue delivering accurate and professional analysis of the military forces shaping the Philippines' security environment.